Hello guys, what's up? So today is the 20th of January and we're going to continue with the Mythbuster series. So this time we're going to do the Theraphosa species and we're going to cover all the three of them that are in the hobby. And I have a lot to say on the species and I even need two boards to describe it. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so since I am covering all the three Theraphosa species, this will apply to all of them. So here we go. Okay, so the common name of the three individual specimens. Okay, for the TS, we will call it Burgundy Goliath bird eater. The TB as the Goliath bird eater, which is the Blondi. And the T.apophysis, we call it the Pinkfoot Goliath. Now for the Latin names of the species. Well, T.stirmi has gone through a lot of name changes. First it was Theraphosa species Burgundy, then it was labeled as species Spinipes. Now Rudloff and Weinman of 2010 has described it as Theraphosa stirmi. Now for the true Goliath bird eater, it's called Theraphosa blondi, previously known as Le Blondi. And Pinkfoot Goliath is called the Theraphosa apophysis. So, like I said, try to learn these Latin names very well because dealers will use Latin names as their stock lists. So I really can't stress this enough to try to learn the Latin names over the common names. Common names is really not a great way to describe a tea and just used mainly for pet stores in order to sell them. So if they have a good common name, they'll probably sell it. Okay, so availability, cost, and size. Well, for the size, Theraphosa species are probably one of the largest tarantula species in the world. Burgundy Goliaths, the T.stirmi gets around 10 to 11.5 inches. As you probably know, I have the species, mature female and male. Hans is around 11 inches, Gretel is around 10.5. Goliath bird eater will probably get up to around 12 inches. Then again, individual specimens do vary. I've seen some that are 8 inches fully grown, some that are 10, maybe even 12. But the Pinkfoot Goliath, the Apophysis, is probably one of the largest of the genus. They can get a 13-inch leg span. Okay, now for availability, cost, and size. Well, if you want to get the true T.blondi, good luck. It's really hard to come by because most pet stores are labeling the Burgundy Goliaths as Goliath bird eaters because they can't see the subtle difference. So hopefully on this board I'm going to show you the key differences that you'll be able to see for the three specimens. Availability, let's see what else. The Pinkfoot Goliath is somewhat rare and uncommon. Most likely on reptile expos, if you go to, most of them will have adult females or males Burgundy Goliaths. Wild-caught specimens, adults, they range around 100 to 130. If you want to go to captive bred, they're a lot more expensive. Here in Canada, they're selling a 3-inch Goliath bird eater. I think it was T.blondi or could have been T.stirmi for $300, and the Apophysis was $185. It's still on sale for Tarantula Canada, around an inch, so pretty expensive here. So now cover the cost and the size, the availability. Like I said, you have to be careful of which Theraphosa you own. If you're going to an online dealer, it's best if you can ask the dealer to take a picture of their specimen they're selling you, so that way you can distinguish it. Okay, now for the enclosure setups. This is probably one of the only tarantulas I do not recommend critter keepers, just because of their immense size. So here is Hans, my mature male T.stirmi. You've seen him yesterday. This is a 5-gallon tank. No, to be honest, it's more than enough for it. And here's Gretel. She's in a little double 10-gallon. And she's over here. And you can see a 10-gallon tank is just more than enough for T.blondi. You could house them in a 20-gallon tank, it's fine. Anything over 30 is a little bit too excessive. Alright, now for the care sheet, the temp, humidity, and I just also added feeding because that also came to mind and I thought I should explain it. Okay, so Theraphosa species are one of the more difficult species to raise, especially as juveniles and slings. They're as fragile as avics. So, like I said in the avic video, they need a lot of humidity. This species needs to be at least 85% bare minimum of humidity. If it's too dry, it's not going to survive, because I know that happened to me once. A couple of years ago, I had a T.blondi. I had it as a 2-inch specimen. It doubled in size about a year, and then it just mysteriously died, and I figured out I was keeping it too dry. It took me 10 years to figure that out, so that's why now I have it designed the way it is. So temperatures, you need it to be really warm in the tank, at least 80 to 85 degrees, but you could also drop down to 77 at night. It's very normal, and you should do that so that it gives the tarantula a sense of time. So for humidity, the way I keep it is that I have an open water dish, fill it up with water, keep it all full at all times. Pour a lot of warm water over the substrate so that way it looks wet. Now for ventilation of the species, I tend to try to keep it as few as possible. So these are like plastic things that you put your paper in. So I just block some of the ventilation out, but not much. I still keep some ventilation for it to breathe. So this what happens, like I haven't misted the tank in over 2 weeks, and you can see it's still wet. So this is a must for the T.stirmi, T.apophysis, and the T.blondi. Even so with my male, I do the same thing. So I put a little piece of little plastic bag over it, so it does have some space for it to breathe. And you can see, once again, the substrate has been misted in over 2 weeks and it's still moist. So I could tell you ventilation is very important for the species. Now about feeding. Okay, so what to feed these guys. So I've seen many YouTube videos of feeding mice to these big T's. And I'll say this to you, I probably haven't said it before, I'll probably say it again. Don't feed mice to T.blondis, because one of the ultimate killers of T.blondi, T.apophysis, and T.stirmi is the result of too much of a high calcium diet. People think that because it's a big T, they shouldn't feed it anything larger than a mouse. Well, you're going to be wrong, because the more calcium that you build up in the exoskeleton, the more difficult it's going to break out in molts. And one of these species is probably famous for chronic molting problems. So this is very dangerous to keep feeding mice to one of these big Goliath spiders. So what I recommend is those superworms. It's very equivalent. If you want to get a fat abdomen, you could just look at Gretel. You can see how fat she is. I could recommend B. dubia roaches. That's also a great feeding source for her. Or if you want to use crickets, I would recommend putting around 6 in there. So that way it could eat well. So mice, I really don't recommend it because it is one of the more fatal incidents of T.blondis, and also keeping it too dry also is a factor. Now about handleability. Do I recommend this tarantula to handle? I don't. Just because of their huge fangs. they have 1-inch long fangs. So not only is their venom much more stronger than your typical New World species, but it can also cause mechanical damage. So it's really not suggested to handle the species. Also, these species happen to be one of the more powerful urticating hairs that they have. So if you're doing maintenance, I really suggest you put like goggles on and wear gloves when you're handling the species, because if one of the hairs gets in your eyes, you could be temporarily or maybe even permanently blinded. So it's a tough species to deal with. Okay, so now about breeding and mating. Well, I do have some experience on this one because you could see we paired Gretel and Hans 6 times. Okay, so like I said, mating, it's really easy. As you can see, Gretel is a really good female. The male is just raring to go. She accepts him. She's very receptive. But the problem is, it's very hard to get a sack. Even Tarantula Guy 1976 has this difficulty. I don't know what happens, why they don't do it. Just don't have a good explanation. I know a lot of mating of them causes them to molt sooner than expected. As I said during the mating attempt 3, she molted right after that, and it was strange because my specimen doesn't molt for once every 1.5 years, and she molted around 7 months after mating her 3 times. So I don't know. So hopefully I'm gonna have better luck this year. And hopefully I'll breed them. So we're going to breed them tomorrow if I have a chance. If not, we'll do it on Saturday. We'll feed her up before we pair them up. Also, like I said, keep the female well fed before you attempt to mate. It's really important. Okay, now for the controversy. The Blondi versus Styrmi. Okay, so now I have Rude Lot's paper on my computer. So get my piece of chalk here. Now hopefully this video will also help you determine what to look for in the T.apophysis, T.blondi, and the T.stirmi. Okay, so now I guess we'll go to the mature males because they're much more easy to figure out. Okay, so the colors of these apophysis species are purple. They're purple. Blondies are brown, and so is this one. So just like Hans and the T.blondi. Okay, so now for the tibial hooks, this one has yes, this one does have tibial hooks, not present on both of these species. And bulbous pedipalps, they all have it, as all mature males will do. Now about patella hair. Patella hair in mature males. Okay, so for an apophysis, they should have hair. They should have hair. But you can tell from a mature male that it will have the purple color. So this one here has long and curved. This one has no hairs. Alright, so now for the females. Okay, now for the patella hair. Apophysis. Okay, for the colors. This one has like a brown purple color to them. Blondies have like a brown color, like a light brown, and T.stirmi have like a dark brown color, kind of like a dark chocolate color, if you will. Now for the patella hair. This one has long and curved, just like the Blondi, and this one has no hairs on the patella. So I'll show you what it looks like in pictures so you can be able to see them. Now for a subtle difference but not so obvious is their stridulation organs. you know how they hiss. Okay, so now palp and leg 1, that's where there's stridulation organs on all of them, except for the T.apophysis and the T.stirmi. They have an extra one between leg 1 and 2. Leg 1 and 2, not present in T.blondi. Now for juveniles. So this will help you determine how to tell from these 3 species what a sling looks like. Okay, so now for juveniles, what to look for is their leg markings. For a T.apophysis, they should have markings on all the 4 legs. Okay. Blondi have none. You don't have any markings whatsoever. And for T.stirmi, they have the pink on the first 2 pairs of legs only. Oh, before we go look at the pictures, I forgot to mention that their localities are different. Apophysis and Blondi originate from Brazil, whereas T.stirmi originates in French Guyana. And also the temperament, I may have mentioned it, but I don't think so. They're aggressive, so don't handle. And they're seriously bad hair kickers, and they're very bitey. Alright, so now let's go look some pictures up and see what sets apart between the individuals. Okay, so this is the patella that I'm talking about. So we have the extension here, so this is a patella. So notice that it doesn't have any hairs on them, so that is a T.stirmi. Comparing to this one here, you can see the long curved hairs all over. That's your T.blondi. That's what a real T.blondi looks like. If you notice the color, they're very similar colored too. Okay, now for juveniles. So this is a juvenile Theraphosa styrmi. You can see the pink markings on legs number 1 and 2. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And notice that they're absent on their 3 and 4. If you're looking at a blondi, it will look exactly identical to this, except you wouldn't have these pink hairs. All these pink colorations on all the legs, so it'll be absent. And for this one here is the T.apophysis. You can see all the pink. And this one here, that's the Theraphosa blondi. So notice the hairs. T.apophysis, it has like a purple coloration to them. You too, you have the hairs. And you've probably seen Gretel. Looks exactly like this, except you don't have any hairs on them. So, all in all, for recommendations, I recommend this species to an experienced hobbyist. I don't recommend them to a beginner because they're not very handleable and they're very hard to raise, especially as a sling and juvenile. But overall review, even though it looks like a really brown spider, it's one of the largest in the world. It's one of the must-haves in the collection. So I hope this long Mythbuster video helps you in describing the Theraphosa species, all the individual 3, what they look like, and what to look for. So that way you can ask your dealer to send a picture of the one that you're trying to buy, and from this video you could probably determine whether or not he's selling what is he actually selling. So thanks for watching, guys, and have a nice day.